Hey everyone, Electra back here with you. So let's talk more about this neo-Republican idea that's been germinating in my head for at least a year now. I was posting a lot about it when I had a relatively short-lived Twitter account, which of course I abandoned after November 2024, and then on Blue Sky, I don't know if I got into it too much, but on but I did have like a second account as the Wide Awakes of America, which is something I want to talk about today also. The Wide Awakes of America are really a forgotten paramilitary force that essentially sprung out of nowhere in the northern United States during the 1860 campaign in support of the new Republican Party's candidate, Abraham Lincoln of Illinois. And so this group called the Wide Awakes started in New Haven, Connecticut, but quickly this idea spread relatively quickly throughout the northern states. Pretty soon thereafter, they were in Michigan, they were in Illinois, so about as far west as the U.S. extended at that point. There were in Wisconsin too. I forgot to mention, had many of these Wide Awake chapters, and essentially what they were is like it ended up being almost like a paramilitary force, but in the beginning, it was simply just like a group of young men who donned black outfits, including a black cape, and they essentially escorted Republican politicians on the campaign trail to ensure their safety from the Democratic pro-slavery rabble, which actually was fairly numerous even in the northern states. Don't forget that the northern states in 1860 were not a monolith. But yet, less than a year later, they all united to fight the Civil War. And that's what a severe crisis will do when your national security and survival is at stake. That is when these artificial party lines deteriorate, they dissolve, and then it's all about your fraternal brotherhood, sisterhood. Who are your people? Those bonds that are in all of us that a lot of times get erased when we end up with all these, man-made, self-made divisions that aren't really real, but they're made up by political parties for their ends, their purposes. And yeah, so the Wide Awakes, I think, but the reason I'm talking about this is I think we need something like this because if 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 we're going to be having the kind of candidates that we need, if they're neo-Republican candidates, or if they're somehow like if the Democratic Party is serious about changing, which I'm very very doubtful of that, but I'm always I'm always open-minded to see what happens. But I think we need to be planning for the dissolving of the Democratic Party. It's been around it's been around for like 200, almost 200 years. It started during Martin Van Buren's term in the 1830s, and that was when it was both a northern and southern party. But that, of course, and that it was no longer a northern party at all by probably the early 1850s. But this is still the same Democratic Party. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it's going to say founded in 1830 something, I believe, with Martin Van Buren's administration. Van Buren was from New York City. And so if we're going to start going in the direction of like Mamdani and other people like that, like now I don't think they should be clones of Mamdani because New York City is his world and he wouldn't be electable in all 90% of the rest of the country other than like the largest cities, mostly in the north, maybe some southern cities like Dallas or Atlanta, but otherwise he has no electability in the south whatsoever, the Intermountain West, and but he would do well on the West Coast, I think, in the large cities. But there still needs to be some sort of party that can have those same ideals, but yet be electable in the vast majority of the country, other than other than the most urban areas of the country. But the suburbs and the exurbs and a large part of rural America needs to somehow feel like they can connect with everyone else in this coalition, this new party, the neo-Republicans, as I call them. And so, yeah, the wide awakes, they were critical because, I mean, the Republican politicians running for office in 1860 would have been killed. Things were crazy back then. The past was by no means as idealized as we like to think. Um, Candidates ran. Sorry for all the ums. It's late. So, yeah, there was no Secret Service. There was, but keep in mind, most people, people didn't own guns at the rate they do now, and people in general are just like not so prone to resort to violence, but they were mobbed. Democratic mobs were all over the place. They would appear wherever the Republican candidates would canvass, speak. Outdoor speeches were very popular back then to campaign, since TV did not yet exist, streaming did not yet exist. People had to actually campaign in front of live people in very small towns, especially by today's standards. I mean, most of America in 1860 was very rural. The largest city, I think by then, was New York, but I'm not sure. Actually, I'd have to check. It could have been Philadelphia or Boston. I think those were the top three in some particular order, but I'm not sure which. Yeah, so got a lot of ideas going here. I'm not sure how it's going to tie together, but I mean, look at the prevalence of firearms in this country right now. And if we are going to do this for real, people like me or like anyone else needs to feel safe when we go campaign. And I don't think that's going to be possible these days after recent assassinations we have seen. It's really no longer safe to speak and disseminate ideas in front of a live audience unless it's heavily secured, and definitely not outdoors. But there needs to be a show of force. And I've been talking about this in some comments today on some videos on YouTube. But a show of force is the only thing that's going to be noticed or respected by the crime syndicate, fascist, formerly known as the Republican Party that we currently have, which is in no way actually Republican. It's actually anti-Republican, and they somehow still have the name Republican Party. But if you look up actual republicanism, that's what the French Revolution was about. That's what the United States of America was originally about, republicanism. I don't have the definition pulled up right in front of me, but we need it. We need that again. We need that back, because even no party has that in mind right now. It's completely gone from this country, and I think that's what needs to come back in a modern, updated way, where there's absolutely no doubt what we the people means. It means everybody. We the people is all the people. Period. That's the neo-Republican motto, or one of many mottos we will have. Like, I think we should bring back the French Revolution, one of their mottos: liberty, equality, fraternity. We could change that to like liberty, equality, and brotherhood and sisterhood. I think that's a good modern update of that. Fraternity could, obviously, we have that word in our language, and I don't know about you, but it doesn't have good connotations in my mind. And no offense if anyone was in a fraternity at some point, but wasn't for me. And what else? I think that's about all. I'm a little more tired than I thought. I'm coming up on 10 minutes now. Well, I said thought like I'm from New York. Yeah. I'm actually not, well, I'm from upstate New York, but nowhere near New York City. And the upstate New York accent is more like the Great Lakes accent. It's actually a lot more like the Chicago accent than New York City, which is actually way closer, of course. And thank you for watching. I know I got 2 new subscribers, so thank you very much for subscribing. Please feel free to comment, leave constructive comments, criticism, feedback. I'm open to anything as long as it's polite and in good faith. I'm really getting interested in this movement and somehow developing this. I don't think it's an accident that I've had these thoughts that at first I thought, no, like that's not possible. But all my suspicions are coming true. I've always had doubts in the Democratic Party. I haven't always been a Democrat, so I think it's been easier for me to walk away from the Democratic Party as somehow like what we needed. But since about 2006 and 7, I have been mostly a Democrat. Like I probably still consider myself independent during most of that time, but I voted almost all Democrats. So because like to me, the George W. Bush era of Republican Party was, I thought that was the worst you could get. I think we all thought that back in the 2000s, like how innocent we were back then. We thought that was as worse as it was going to get. But that after the George W. Bush second term, that's like all I needed to know. Like I am no longer this, whatever this is. I'm no longer that. And I think the Republican Party now is so far gone, so far off the deep end. They're not the Republican Party. It's insane to me that they were able to just keep that name despite everything. Like at least in George W. Bush's term, they could kind of say that they believed in government. They believed in the right for government to exist. They believed in the government. They just thought it was had very different purposes than the Democrats did. But these are not people who want government. They don't think it wants any right to exist. They actually want to actively destroy it. They are anti-Republican. The neo-Republicans will be actual Republicans, which have always historically been on the political left, from revolutionary France to I guess the rebel side of the Spanish Civil War. I'm not as adept at that as the American one, but it was the anti-fascist side. They fought on the left. They were the anti-fascists fighting the nationalist regime under, I think it was Francisco Franco. But yeah, so yeah, just wanted to get the wide awakes out there. I haven't talked about that in a while. I read a really good book by them about them back in like probably April or May of this year, and I did a short video about it. If you want to look it up, it's a really quick, easy read. And as much as I know about that time period, I learned a lot. It talks a lot about the 1860 campaign trail with Lincoln and how the Wide Awakes like had such a large role to play in that. And it's crazy that this whole idea of the Wide Awakes has completely disappeared. And I think it's safe to say Lincoln would never have been elected if it wasn't for the Wide Awakes. So I think we need to bring that energy and that spirit back in a modern way, in a large force. It doesn't have to be paramilitary. This is not for violence. This is just for like a demonstration, a show of force, a rally, something. We need to start using stronger, more aggressive, militaristic words. I think protest is awful. That should have stopped in the 60s. We need to use positive, forward, progressive, and slightly aggressive language, like the show. Like we're not just complaining here. If anything, they are the ones complaining. That's the goal, at least. They're going to be the ones complaining, not us. They're the ones going to have grievances, and they're the ones that's going to be protesting our existence. That's the goal. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see everyone back very soon. Please like, share, subscribe, and Have a good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.